Support for the Leadoff on WGLT and WGLT.org comes from the Central Illinois Regional Airport, where travelers are one stop away from world destinations. Connections on Delta Airlines to Atlanta are available daily. Close, convenient, CIRA. More at CIRA.com.
A new academic community at ISU is focused on developing intergenerational relationships. That's one of the things you need to know to start your day for Wednesday, June 3rd. I'm Ryan Denham, and this is WGLT's The Leadoff. Now let's lead off with a plastics recycler in Bloomington that now appears to be complying with Bloomington Normal Water Reclamation District efforts to find out what was going on at the site on South Bunn Street. WGLT's Charlie Schlenker updates us on the situation with Akshar Plastics.
Earlier this year, the Water Reclamation District had threatened disconnection and revocation of the wastewater discharge permit for Akshar when the company didn't respond to district questions about wastewater flowing into the sewers. This also followed disputes with the city of Bloomington, an injunction to stop recycling, and hefty city fines. Water Reclamation District Director Tim Irvin says Akshar has now complied with the majority of the orders and hopes to finish final items by the end of the month.
They did move several barrels of different types of chemicals out of the garage, and they're looking at just having a very few barrels, mainly rainwater, that they're working on at the moment.
Irvin says Akshar has now also let public bodies know where it sent remnants after it stopped work in Bloomington.
A lot of the disposals was recycled plastics, and that was sent to another facility, which the district confirmed through the shipping manifest.
The Reclamation District had also been concerned about fluids exiting the plant even after operations were supposed to stop.
The facility was constructed over 100 years ago, and we worked with plumbers. We worked with Akshar to go down into the plumbing, and we believe the majority of the water exiting the facility was actually groundwater.
Irvin says Akshar has put the facility up for sale and paid a little over $15,000 in fines. I'm Charlie Schlenker.
Here's some other stories we're following in the WGLT newsroom. Former Redditus Labs CEO Aaron Rossi has been sentenced to 5 years in prison in a federal tax and mail fraud case, followed by 2 years of supervised release and restitution and a fine. That's the first of 2 criminal cases that Rossi is facing. Authorities have identified the person killed in Monday night's crash near Downs as 62-year-old Stanley Miller from Crystal Lake. And the University of Illinois has helped secure a $51 million federal grant to establish a biomanufacturing tech hub in the region. You can find more on these stories at WGLT.org. Have you ever noticed that people tend to be segregated by age? That adults and kids have largely separate spaces? Well, a new initiative at Illinois State University seeks to bring generations together. Luke Russell is an associate professor in the Department of Family and Consumer Sciences. He tells WGLT's Lindsay Jones about the goals of the Center for Inclusive Intergenerational Environments.
Ours is really about, this kind of epidemic of loneliness, perhaps, and kind of this history of what I would call kind of mono-generational practices that we oftentimes stay in areas where we only interact with people of similar ages or at similar kind of life stages as us. In schools, we break people up by grade. We have, kind of a senior center that's very oriented towards one generation. And the team that we've kind of brought together is really interested in how do you get that, there's lots of wisdom that older adults have to share with kids. There's lots of things that kids can teach to adults. How do we get some of that intergenerational contact facilitated?
How did we end up in a situation where there is such a disconnect between the generations?
It's a good question, and I don't know if there's an easy answer to that. I don't know if some of it was like industrialization and just this, this move towards efficiency of, okay, let's put all the workers in a space with other folks of working age. Let's put all the, kids here. Let's keep teens are a big one. My colleague Elke Altenberger studies teenagers who we kind of never know what to do with as a society. They, don't have a really clear place. We see them as trouble, so we build their schools like prisons. And, I think she's done a lot of work looking at, what do we lose when we do that, when we lock folks up really and don't get to experience the kind of, free thinking that happens sometimes among teenagers.
So this is pretty new. Is it still sort of under construction?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sort of the philosophy that you got to kind of dream it to get there a little bit. Right now, the center is kind of like half a bookshelf in someone's office, and our brief kind of online website. But it also is a community of scholars we've been working on this now for about 2 years, starting to collect some data, hosting some events, getting folks thinking about this, and ideally moving towards trying to build some real stuff out there in the world that can, again, facilitate some of that intergenerational contact and interaction.
Is there anything in the short term that is being looked at for development?
Yeah. So we decided to start with a place we knew well and that we had some familiarity and maybe some inside track status with. So we did some research over the past year on Illinois State University's campus. And we've done some big surveys, just kind of asking folks about what are your favorite places on campus? What are your least favorite places on campus? What do you do there? What is it about it that you like or dislike? We also did some big events in the spring where we brought together decision makers and alumni, current students, faculty, staff, and we put them all in the same room. And we had them do some big looks at places like the library, the Bone Student Center, and since we're based out of there, Turner Hall on campus. But it was really fascinating to get some students sitting next to, a big administrator or a local politician or, someone else with ties to the university of various ages, and just talking about, what are the parts of the library that you really enjoy? Where do you find relief or rest or inspiration? But it was interesting to make those connections and facilitate some of that discussion on how could we reimagine some of these spaces or build on their strengths in various ways.
That was ISU Family and Consumer Sciences professor Luke Russell speaking with WGLT's Lindsay Jones. You can read or listen to the rest of their conversation at WGLT.org. And before we let you go, just a heads up that there will not be a new episode of The Leadoff tomorrow or Friday because of the 4th of July weekend. Back at you bright and early Monday morning. That's it for today. I'm Ryan Dedham. The show is produced by Lou Warner. You can subscribe to The Leadoff on the NPR app or wherever you listen.